Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to talk about mentorship, how to get and keep a mentor. So I've been blessed to have two mentors. I've actually had three mentors in my life. Two of those mentors have been very successful situations. One of them was a very failed mentor situation. And basically the one that failed was when a corporation tried to set up a mentor for me. But the other two mentor situations were mentor situations where I set up the mentor situation, right? And I created, so the way to get a mentor is to just be looking out for a person who has, so I guess here's the criteria you need to get a mentor. You have to identify a person who has knowledge and experience that you want. You have to identify a person who has goodwill toward you. All right. Now, if you identify someone who has the knowledge and experience you want, but they don't have goodwill toward you, you may be able to position that. You may be able to get that person to have just a level of goodwill toward you, right? So, and that's how you get, and then basically once you have found a person who has knowledge and experience you want, who has a level of goodwill toward you, then all you really need is you need meetings, right? So you need to meet with that person, spend time with that person where you can ask questions. And I feel like that's what a mentor relationship is. You are just asking questions and getting answers and listening to those answers and then applying the answers you've been given, right? And so I've had two mentors. My first mentor, his name, my first mentor, he was, both of my mentors have come out of workplaces that I worked at, right? And the first one, he was a technology guy, and he was a very talented technology guy. And what I really wanted from him was he was smart technologically, but he also managed people, and he had been put into a management position. And I've always wanted to manage and be a manager. I think the tech part comes, relatively straightforward for me. But the soft skills involved in management are not easy. So the way I got this mentor was, I would just have lunch with this guy, and I would just ask all kinds of questions about him. And so the biggest way I got there to establish the goodwill was when we would have lunch, I would talk to, this was way back in the day, probably 15 years ago. And this guy played World of Warcraft. And I was fascinated by the guild situation, the situation with his guild. So there was always this drama that would go on about guild situations. So I would just ask him question after question after question about his guild in his World of Warcraft game. And this guy would just talk nonstop about it, right? Well, this probably went on for about 6 months. And, I knew all about his World of Warcraft characters, his guild. Now, the other thing is, I did not, it's hard. Yeah, whenever you're in a professional situation, friendship and actually it gets mixed, right? So I really I did have a genuine interest in this information, but it built up that goodwill for me to ask him other questions about work. And so your questions, your important questions, you need to be careful how you phrase your questions, and that your questions that you have from a professional basis come at, I would say, a ratio of 1 out of 10. So 9 out of 10 questions that you ask should be just on things about that person. Now, you can make inferences. I actually learned about how to manage people by some of the answers that were given about the World of Warcraft guild. Fascinating, right? But then I had the opportunity to ask professional questions, and I would be careful about what I asked. So basically, the time you're being given from your mentor is really, valuable, because a mentor, anybody who's going to be your mentor, people are going to want their time. They're going to want it from a social perspective. They're going to want it from a cultural perspective. They're going to want it from a professional perspective. They're going to want it from a personal perspective. So you have to realize that the time being given to you by your mentor is precious. And so you want to ask a lot of questions about them, be genuinely interested in the answers, and then when you have a real professional question, kind of, slip it in there and get that answer. And then when you're given the answer, if you don't like it, do it. Do things that put you outside of your comfort zone, right? So I've been really blessed to have these mentors. And it was really excellent that things worked out the way they did, and that and then the other thing I wanted to say is, at no point did I ever say to either one of my mentors, you are my mentor and I am your mentee, right? You don't put those labels on it because it's not necessary. It's just kind of unspoken, right? And so that's, so essentially you form the relationship of being the one who listens, and when somebody says something, you put yourself in an attentive position, right? That you're being attentive, and you're saying, I'm going, and with everything but your words, you say, I'm going to learn from you, right? Now, my second mentor, I'm really blessed. So my first mentor moved to Boston, right? So he just physically moved, and so I lost that mentor. And a few years later, I had an opportunity to kind of establish the same relationship with a different person in my professional zone. And at that point, what I did was, now I was really blessed. I was in a professional environment, and the mentor I got came from a professional perspective. But one of the things that's interesting was he's a brother in Christ. And so not only was he, a professional mentor, but he was a spiritual mentor as well. And I still have that mentor today. And I just got done with a meeting with my mentor, and it was a real blessing. And it always is a real blessing. It really fills me with just a sense of joy. It gives me knowledge and wisdom that I can tend to take away. And I see how my mentor walks through challenges, walks through trials. It's just really, it's great to have a mentor, and you can establish having a mentor by pursuing a mentor, finding somebody who you want their knowledge and experience. And then you establish a level of goodwill from them, and then you simply just set up meetings. And my mentors, I meet with them once a quarter, right? And it's not even like that, exact. Like maybe one year we only meet twice a year, but in some years we might meet 5 or 6 times a year. But it's great to have a mentor. I highly encourage it. You will be the mentee and they will be the mentor. One of the biggest things to establish it, don't actually put that label on it. Just put yourself in a position where you can ask questions, you can get the answer, and then you can put those answers into action. That is how you establish a mentor relationship, and they are worth every bit of time invested. Thank you. Take care.